You love this person deeply. That part is not in question. But somewhere between the love and the daily reality of being with them, there is a gap that keeps widening, and you cannot figure out how to close it. Arguments happen, tension builds, words are exchanged, or sometimes not even exchanged at all, and then silence. And then, as if nothing occurred, they walk back into the room and act completely normal. They pour a cup of coffee. They ask what you want for dinner. They smile at you like the last 2 hours did not happen. And you are standing there, still holding every unresolved feeling, every unanswered question, every hurt that was never acknowledged, wondering if you are losing your mind. You are not losing your mind. What you are experiencing is one of the most emotionally exhausting patterns that exists inside a relationship. And it has a name, a cause, and a very specific psychological origin that, once you understand it, will change the way you see everything. The return after conflict is supposed to feel like repair. In healthy relationships, both people come back to the table, acknowledge what happened, take responsibility for their part, and move forward with a genuine sense of resolution. But what you are experiencing is something entirely different. They come back, yes, but they come back having skipped every single step in between. No acknowledgement, no apology, no conversation about what went wrong. Just a quiet, almost invisible expectation that you will match their energy and pretend alongside them. And here is what makes this so painful. Part of you does match it because the alternative is another conflict, another shutdown, another wall going up. So you smile back, you answer the dinner question, you carry on. But something did happen. Something real and significant happened, and it is now sitting inside you with nowhere to go. Over time, those unaddressed moments do not disappear. They accumulate. They stack on top of each other like layers of sediment, and what forms underneath is resentment. Not the dramatic, explosive kind necessarily, but the quiet, corrosive kind that slowly erodes the foundation of trust and emotional safety that every relationship needs to survive. So you try. Because you are someone who values honesty and connection, you try to bring it up. You choose your words carefully. You try not to sound accusatory. You use the language you have read about, the calm tone, the specific examples, and within seconds the conversation shifts. Suddenly they are defending themselves against something you did not even say. Suddenly the focus is on your delivery, your timing, your tone. Suddenly you are the problem. Or worse, they go completely silent. Not a thoughtful silence, but a shutdown silence. A wall comes down and you can feel it physically. The way the air in the room changes, the way their eyes go somewhere else, the way their body language closes off entirely. And you are left trying to reach someone who has essentially left the building while still standing right in front of you. This is not stubbornness. This is not immaturity, though it can look like both. What you are watching is a deeply conditioned psychological response, one that was built long before you ever entered the picture. What you are most likely dealing with is a dismissive, avoidant attachment style. This is one of the 4 primary attachment styles identified in psychological research, and it develops in early childhood as a direct response to emotional environment. A child who grows up in a household where emotional expression was met with dismissal, criticism, withdrawal, or punishment learns something fundamental about survival. They learn that having feelings is dangerous. They learn that needing something from another person leads to rejection or disappointment. And so they do the only logical thing a child can do in that situation. They shut it down. They build an internal system that suppresses emotional awareness, that creates distance as a default, and that treats self-sufficiency as the highest possible value. By the time this child becomes an adult and enters a romantic relationship, that system is so deeply embedded it operates almost entirely outside of conscious awareness. They are not choosing to shut you out. They genuinely do not have access to the emotional processing that you are asking them to engage in, at least not in the way you need them to. But there is something even deeper operating beneath the avoidant behavior, and this is the part that most people never see because the wall is so effective at hiding it. Underneath the shutdown, underneath the defensiveness, underneath the ability to walk back into a room and act like nothing happened, there is a wound of profound defectiveness. This is a core shame wound. Not guilt, which is the feeling of having done something wrong, but shame, which is the feeling of being something wrong, of being fundamentally flawed, broken, or unworthy at the most basic level of personhood. For someone carrying this wound, conflict is not just uncomfortable, it is existentially threatening. When you bring up something they did that hurt you, what they hear at the deepest level is not a request for repair. What they hear is confirmation of their worst fear about themselves, that they are defective, that they are too much or not enough or simply wrong in some irreparable way. And the only way to survive that feeling is to not feel it at all. So they shut down. They deflect. They go defensive. They disappear into normalcy because normalcy is the only place where the shame cannot reach them. Understanding where their behavior comes from does not make it hurt less, and it absolutely doesn't mean you should simply accept it without question. Because what this pattern does to the other person in the relationship to you is significant and real. When your emotional needs are consistently unmet, when conflict is never resolved, when you cannot bring up a hurt without triggering a shutdown, you begin to lose something essential. You lose the sense that this relationship is emotionally safe. Safety in a relationship is not just about physical security. It is about knowing that you can be honest, that your feelings will be received, that repair is possible after rupture. When that safety is absent, you stop bringing things up. You start managing yourself around their reactions. You begin to shrink. And resentment grows not because you are a resentful person, but because resentment is the natural emotional response to having your needs repeatedly dismissed. Trust erodes not because you are insecure, but because trust requires consistent evidence that the other person will show up for you, and that evidence keeps failing to appear. The path forward does not begin with fixing them. It begins with understanding the full picture of what is happening and making conscious, informed choices from that place. If your partner is dismissive, avoidant, they are not beyond growth. Attachment styles are not permanent sentences. With the right therapeutic support, with genuine motivation, and with a partner who understands the process, real change is possible. But it requires them to be willing to look at the shame underneath the wall. It requires them to develop what is called emotional tolerance, the capacity to sit with uncomfortable feelings without immediately fleeing into shutdown or defense. That is slow, difficult, deeply personal work, and no one can do it for them. What you can do is get clear on your own needs. Not as demands, but as honest assessments of what you require to feel safe and connected in a relationship. You can seek your own support, your own therapy, your own space to process what this dynamic has cost you. And you can have an honest conversation, not about the last argument, but about the pattern itself. About what you need the relationship to look like in order for it to work. Because loving someone is real and it matters enormously. But love without emotional safety is not a foundation. It is just hope. And hope alone cannot hold a relationship together indefinitely.